Hello and welcome back. The new Young and the Restless episode delivers tension that builds from start to finish. The Young and the Restless spoilers for Tuesday, August 18th reveals Jack Abbott, Peter Bergman, will stand up to Kane Ashby, Billy Flynn. Also coming up, Danny Romalotti, Michael Damian, will have even more surprising news to share. Plus, Claire Newman, Haley Aaron, will be taken aback to see Victoria Newman, Amelia Heinley, with Kyle Abbott, Michael Mealer. And Billy Abbott, Jason Thompson, will tell Holden Novak, Nathan Owens, to choose a side. YNR spoilers tease Lauren Fenmore, Tracy E. Bregman, will walk into the shadow room to meet Michael Baldwin, Christian LeBlanc. "What do you think we're doing here?" she'll ask him. Then Christine Romalotti, Laura Lee Bell, will arrive, saying she had a strange summons from her husband. Danny serenades his wife at the shadow room. Danny will arrive and say he wants them all to hear his announcement. First, he'll ask them to take a seat, so he can play his new song for them. Afterwards, Cricket will remind him he has other news. Danny will say he's purchased half of the shadow room, from Noah Newman, Joshua Morrow. Lauren will say it's the best news ever. At Jabot, Jack will tell Kane that Chancellor could rightfully belong to the Abbotts. He'll say his sisters are trying to convince Billy to come to Jabot to settle it. "Before he gets here, what do you say you and I lay our cards on the table?" Kane will tell Jack that Billy's ready to burn everything down. But Jack will point out if the debt was not paid, then Billy's right. Because of money owed and not paid back. Kane will tell him Lily Winters, Crystal Khalil, owns Chancellor. For now, Jack will reply. Then Kane will ask if he's really going to condone Billy's obsession. "You knew he was looking for a secret," Jack will say. "As I see it, we do have a case here." Kane will say if Billy doesn't back off, he'll put all his effort into helping Lily and he'll make it ugly. Jack will admit a part of him wants this to go away, but he's tried reasoning with Billy. "I am trying to protect my father's name in all of this." Kane will tell him he doesn't want to go after his father. "But Billy's fighting to win, so I'm going to do the same." Then Billy will show up. "How about you don't fight at all?" he'll say to Kane. Chancellor belongs to the Abbotts. But Kane will say their attorneys believe it's a flimsy case at best. "Stop with the God complex, Billy," he'll shout. "Quit trying to rule the world." But Billy will say he doesn't want the world, he wants Chancellor. "Why?" Jack will ask. Then Billy will storm off. Claire's surprised by Mom's companion. Meanwhile, Kyle will run into Victoria at Crimson Lights and ask her if she wants to talk. "I was worried about you," he'll tell her, asking if she's spoken to her brother. Victoria will tell him not yet. "I'm sorry for everything you're going through," Kyle will reply. Victoria will say that for an Abbott, he's a pretty good friend. Then Claire and Holden will walk in. Claire will awkwardly greet her mother. Holden will grab them drinks and Claire will say she's surprised to see the two of them together. "I ran into Kyle when Nick was missing," Victoria will explain. Things will be awkward and eventually Claire and Holden will sit on the patio. He'll say it was weird to see her mom with Kyle. Then he'll spill the beans about Billy's claim. Soon after, Billy will rush in and tell Holden Chancellor is his now. "Does this mean you're firing me?" Holden will ask. Billy will say he wants to keep him on, but he has to pick a side. He'll add that if Holden chooses to appease his sister, he could end up with nothing. But if he chooses to work with him, one day he may own his own company. Finally, back at Jabot, Kane will ask Jack to help him with Billy, but he'll say he's staying out of this. "You and Lily are going to do what you need to do," Jack will add. "Stay away from my father's name and reputation, or you will deal with me." What really caught my attention is how fear begins to outweigh reason in this episode. Jack threatens Kane, Billy demands Holden pick a side, Claire sees Victoria with Kyle. The battle for Chancellor Industries is no longer just a corporate dispute. On Tuesday, August 18th, the Young and the Restless turns the struggle into a deeply personal war as Billy Abbott continues to push forward with his claim, Kane Ashby searches for allies, and Jack Abbott finally makes it clear that there is one line nobody should cross. At the same time, Billy puts Holden Novak in an uncomfortable position by demanding that he choose a side. Holden has worked around both Lily and Kane, but Billy's latest offer could force him to decide whether loyalty is more important than opportunity. And then there is Claire Newman. Claire walks into Crimson Lights expecting an ordinary moment, only to find her mother, Victoria Newman, spending time alone with Kyle Abbott. What Claire sees may not necessarily mean what she thinks it means, but the situation is awkward enough to leave her wondering exactly what is happening between Victoria and Kyle. According to the August 18th spoilers, Jack warns Kane that he will not tolerate any attack on John Abbott's reputation or legacy. Meanwhile, Billy tries to pull Holden into his corner, while Kyle provides emotional support to Victoria during a difficult period. But beneath those individual confrontations is a much bigger question. Who will ultimately control Chancellor, and how far are the Abbotts, Newmans, Kane and Lily willing to go to win? Jack Abbott draws a line in the sand. Jack Abbott has spent much of this battle trying to remain above the increasingly ugly fights surrounding Chancellor Industries. That may be easier said than done. Jack understands why Billy believes Chancellor should belong to the Abbott family. He also understands why Kane and Lily are fighting to protect what they believe is rightfully theirs. But Jack's priorities are different. For Jack, this is not simply about corporate ownership. It is about John Abbott. John's name has become increasingly important in the Chancellor conflict, and Jack is unwilling to allow his father's reputation to become a weapon in somebody else's corporate war. When Kane approaches Jack, he is hoping to find an ally. Instead, he gets a warning. Kane wants Jack to help him deal with Billy. From Kane's perspective, Jack is one of the few people powerful enough to influence Billy. If Jack could convince Billy to back away, perhaps the situation could be resolved before Chancellor becomes the center of another Abbott family disaster. But Jack refuses to become Kane's weapon. He makes it clear that Kane and Lily need to fight their own battle. That doesn't mean Jack is indifferent. Far from it. Jack has been watching the situation carefully. He knows Billy has become increasingly determined, and he knows Kane is equally unwilling to surrender. The problem is that Jack doesn't want either side dragging John Abbott's name into the conflict. That is where Jack's patience ends. Leave my father's name out of this. Jack's warning to Kane could have enormous consequences. He essentially tells Kane that he will stay out of the battle, provided Kane and Lily respect the boundaries surrounding John Abbott's legacy. If they don't, Jack will get personally involved. That changes everything. Kane may have expected Jack to remain neutral. Instead, he learns that neutrality has conditions. Jack isn't promising to help Billy. He isn't promising to help Kane. He's promising to protect John. And that distinction could become extremely important. Because Billy may believe he is fighting for something that belongs to his family, while Kane believes he is protecting something that belongs to his side of the Chancellor legacy. Jack sees something more dangerous. He sees his father's name becoming part of a power struggle. And Jack Abbott does not take that lightly. The confrontation also highlights something fascinating about Jack. He is not necessarily choosing Billy. He is choosing John. That could create friction between Jack and his own brother. Billy has spent so much time insisting that Chancellor belongs with the Abbotts that he may not appreciate Jack telling him to slow down. If Billy believes Jack's intervention threatens his plans, brothers could soon find themselves on opposite sides of the same family issue. And that would make the Chancellor war even more personal. Billy Abbott is acting like the victory is already his. Billy has reached a point where he is no longer behaving as though Chancellor is merely something he wants. He is behaving as though Chancellor is already his. That confidence may be exactly what gets him into trouble. Billy has made it clear that he intends to take control of Chancellor. He believes the circumstances surrounding John Abbott and the company give him a legitimate claim. But believing you have won and actually winning are two very different things. Kane and Lily aren't going quietly. Jack isn't automatically supporting Billy. And Victoria has her own opinions about what happens next. Billy knows he needs people around him. That is why Holden becomes so important. Holden is caught in an increasingly complicated position. He has connections to the people fighting over Chancellor, and Billy sees him as someone who could potentially become useful. So Billy makes a direct appeal. Actually, it's more than an appeal. It's a demand. Pick a side. Billy puts Holden Novak on the spot. Holden may have walked into the situation thinking he was simply doing his job. Billy quickly changes that. When Billy tells Holden that Chancellor is his now, Holden immediately understands what that statement means. The natural question follows. Does this mean Billy is firing him? Billy's answer is surprising. He doesn't want Holden gone. He wants Holden with him. And Billy offers something that could be extremely tempting. A future. Billy suggests that if Holden works with him rather than siding with Lily and the opposing camp, Holden could eventually have the opportunity to build something of his own. In other words, Billy isn't simply asking for loyalty. He's offering ambition. That's a dangerous combination. Holden now has to decide whether he believes Billy's promises are realistic. Because Billy is asking him to bet his future on a man whose own position is still being challenged. If Billy wins, Holden could potentially benefit enormously. But if Billy loses, Holden could find himself standing on the wrong side of the Chancellor War with very little to show for it. And Billy isn't making the decision easy. He warns Holden that choosing to appease his sister could leave him with nothing. That is classic Billy. He frames the situation as a choice between security and opportunity. Stay with Lily's side, and Holden might remain safe but limited. Join Billy, and perhaps Holden could eventually become the owner of something himself. The question is whether Holden trusts Billy enough to take that gamble. Holden's choice could have consequences. Holden's decision may look like a small subplot compared with the battle for Chancellor. It isn't. In soap operas, seemingly minor choices often become the beginning of much larger stories. If Holden sides with Billy, Lily could see it as another betrayal. Kane could interpret it as evidence that Billy is successfully recruiting people to his side. And Claire could find herself caught between her feelings for Holden and her family's complicated relationships. That's particularly important because Claire is already dealing with an uncomfortable situation at Crimson Lights. She doesn't just see Holden. She sees her mother. And she sees Kyle. Together. Claire walks into an awkward scene. Crimson Lights becomes the setting for one of the day's most uncomfortable moments. Kyle Abbott encounters Victoria Newman and approaches her because he knows she has been dealing with a lot. Kyle asks about Nick. Victoria admits that she hasn't spoken with her brother yet. Kyle doesn't push her. Instead, he offers sympathy. He tells her that he's sorry for everything she's going through. It is a surprisingly gentle moment. Kyle isn't there to manipulate her. He isn't there to discuss business. He isn't there to discuss business. He's simply being supportive. And Victoria appreciates it. She even makes a comment suggesting that, despite being an Abbott, Kyle is a pretty good friend. That sentence alone could be enough to make people wonder where this relationship is heading. Because Victoria and Kyle have developed an increasingly unusual connection. They come from two families that have spent decades fighting. Yet their personal interactions have become increasingly warm. And that's exactly what Claire walks in on. Claire sees Victoria and Kyle together. Claire arrives at Crimson Lights with Holden. She expects a normal encounter. Instead, she sees Victoria and Kyle together. The situation isn't necessarily romantic. But it is intimate enough to attract Claire's attention. Claire knows her mother. She also knows Kyle. and she immediately recognizes that something has changed. The awkwardness is almost unavoidable. Victoria is forced to acknowledge Claire. Kyle is suddenly aware that the situation could look completely different from Claire's perspective. And Claire has to process what she is seeing. The moment becomes particularly interesting because Claire doesn't need anyone to explain the situation to her. She can read the room. Her mother is comfortable around Kyle. Kyle is emotionally supportive of Victoria. And neither of them seems particularly eager to end the conversation. That could leave Claire wondering whether this is simply friendship or something much more complicated. Claire's reaction could be bigger than anyone expects. Claire has already experienced enough family upheaval to make her sensitive to changes in her mother's life. Victoria has always been an important figure in Claire's world. So seeing her mother developing a close bond with Kyle could create conflicting emotions. Claire might not immediately object. She might even try to be understanding. But that doesn't mean she will be comfortable. And there's another issue. Kyle is an Abbott. Claire is a Newman. Their families have a history that makes almost every romantic possibility complicated. If Victoria and Kyle were ever to become more than friends, it wouldn't simply affect them. It could affect Claire. It could affect Billy. It could affect Jack. It could affect Victor. It could affect Nikki. And eventually, it could even become another weapon in the Chancellor conflict. That's why this seemingly innocent coffee conversation could matter so much. Kyle becomes Victoria's unexpected support system. Kyle's role in Victoria's life is one of the more intriguing developments. Victoria has been dealing with serious emotional pressure because of everything happening around her family. Nick's situation has affected everyone. Billy's battle over Chancellor has created another source of tension. And Victoria is caught between family loyalty and the need to make her own choices. Kyle offers something different. He doesn't demand anything. He doesn't tell her what to do. He simply listens. That may be exactly why Victoria feels comfortable around him. But emotional closeness can be dangerous in Genoa City. People rarely remain just friends forever. And when two people come from rival families, even an innocent friendship can become explosive. Claire's reaction may be the first indication that other people are beginning to notice. Danny Romalotti makes a major move. While the Chancellor battle dominates the Abbott and Newman worlds, Danny Romalotti has his own big announcement. Danny gathers Michael Baldwin, Lauren Fenmore, and Christine Romalotti at the Shadow Room. He wants them to hear something important. But before revealing his business news, Danny does something deeply personal. He performs a song for them. The moment gives Danny and Christine a romantic and emotional beat amid all the corporate drama surrounding the rest of Genoa City. Then Danny delivers the bigger surprise. He has purchased half of the Shadow Room from Noah Newman. That means Danny isn't simply visiting Genoa City. He's putting down roots. He's investing in the city. And he's creating a new chapter for himself. For Christine, the news is especially meaningful. Danny isn't preparing to disappear again. He is building a future. The Shadow Room could become more than a business. It could become Danny's new home base. And that opens the door to an entirely new storyline. Danny's new venture could connect everyone. The Shadow Room has the potential to become a gathering place for several major characters. Danny's music career gives him connections. Christine's legal world gives her connections. Lauren and Michael have their own extensive relationships throughout Genoa City. And Noah's involvement means the Newman family isn't far away. That could eventually bring Danny into the orbit of the Chancellor conflict. Business interests have a funny way of crossing paths in Genoa City. One person's investment becomes another person's opportunity. A private meeting becomes a public scandal. A friendship becomes a business partnership. And a business partnership becomes a family war. Danny may believe he's simply investing in a nightclub. But in Genoa City, there is no such thing as a completely separate business story. Jack and Kane's confrontation could be a turning point. Returning to Jack and Kane, their confrontation has a deeper meaning. Kane is looking for help. Jack refuses. But Jack also tells Kane exactly what he needs to know. If Kane keeps John Abbott's name out of the fight, Jack will remain on the sidelines. If Kane crosses that line, Jack will enter the battle. Kane should take the warning seriously. Because Jack Abbott is not someone who makes empty threats. The real question is whether Kane can keep the Chancellor battle clean. Billy certainly isn't making that easy. And Lily isn't likely to surrender. The pressure on Kane is enormous. He needs allies. He needs strategy. And he needs to prevent Billy from taking control. But now he also needs to make sure Jack doesn't become his enemy. That could be difficult. Billy's biggest problem may be Billy himself. Billy's confidence is understandable. But his approach is increasingly aggressive. He believes he is right. He believes Chancellor belongs to his family. And he believes anyone who refuses to support him is making the wrong choice. That mentality could become his greatest weakness. Instead of convincing people, Billy may end up intimidating them. Instead of building alliances, he could create enemies. Holden is a perfect example. Billy could have simply asked Holden to consider joining his team. Instead, he essentially tells him that he needs to pick a side. That creates pressure. And pressure often produces unexpected decisions. Holden may not want to be forced into the middle of a family war. But Billy is making neutrality almost impossible. Lily and Kane are running out of options. Lily and Kane have been trying to hold their position. But Billy continues pushing. Now Kane has approached Jack. And Jack has rejected the request. That means Kane may need to look elsewhere. The spoilers indicate that Kane is forming a new alliance against Billy. Whoever becomes part of that alliance could dramatically change the balance of power. Because Billy's biggest advantage is his confidence. His biggest weakness is that he may be underestimating how many people are willing to oppose him. If Kane can quietly build a coalition, Billy could discover that Chancellor isn't nearly as secure as he thinks. The Abbott family could split. Jack and Billy don't necessarily want the same thing. Billy wants Chancellor. Jack wants to protect John Abbott's legacy. Those goals can overlap. But they can also collide. If Jack believes Billy is using John improperly, Jack may challenge his own brother. And if Billy believes Jack is standing in the way of his future, Billy may refuse to back down. That could produce one of the most compelling Abbott family conflicts in months. The Abbott family has survived countless corporate wars. But family conflicts are always different. You can defeat a business rival. You can't simply fire your brother from your life. Could Jack eventually support Billy? That's one of the biggest questions coming out of this storyline. Jack hasn't exactly rejected Billy's claim. Instead, he has established boundaries. That leaves the door open. If Billy proves that Chancellor truly belongs to the Abbotts, and if he can demonstrate that he's acting in the spirit of John Abbott's wishes, Jack could eventually become one of his strongest supporters. But Billy needs to be careful. Jack isn't going to support reckless behavior. He isn't going to support personal attacks. And he certainly isn't going to tolerate anyone damaging John's reputation. So Billy may eventually have to convince Jack that his battle isn't about greed. It's about legacy. Could Claire become a problem for Victoria? Claire's reaction to seeing Victoria with Kyle may become more significant than expected. At first, she may simply be surprised. But if Victoria and Kyle continue growing closer, Claire could eventually start asking questions. Why Kyle? Why now? And what does this mean for her family? Claire could also worry about how Victor and Nikki would react. The Newman-Abbott rivalry is legendary. A romantic relationship between Victoria and Kyle would be guaranteed to create fireworks. Victor Newman would almost certainly have an opinion. Jack Abbott would have an opinion. Billy would have an opinion. And Claire would be caught in the middle. That's precisely why the writers may be positioning Claire as the first person to witness the growing closeness. She becomes the audience's eyes. She sees something unusual. She doesn't know exactly what it means. And now she has to decide whether to say something. Kyle may be more important than he realizes. Kyle's connection with Victoria could also affect his own family. Kyle is already deeply connected to the Abbott legacy. If he becomes romantically involved with Victoria, his relationship with Jack could become complicated. And if Billy opposes it, Kyle could suddenly find himself fighting his own cousin. The situation could become even more complicated if Chancellor becomes part of the relationship. Imagine Kyle trying to support Victoria while Billy is fighting against Kane and Lily. Imagine Jack trying to protect John Abbott's legacy while Kyle grows closer to a Newman. Imagine Claire being forced to watch her mother's relationship develop. That is exactly the kind of interconnected storyline The Young and the Restless thrives on. What does this mean for Kane? Kane's warning from Jack may force him to rethink his strategy. He can't rely on the Abbotts. He can't assume Jack will save him. And he can't underestimate Billy. If Kane wants to win, he needs a new plan. That may explain why he begins searching for another alliance. But every alliance has a price. Whoever joins Kane will want something in return. And Kane may eventually have to make a deal he never expected to make. That could bring another major player into the Chancellor fight. Billy's ultimatum could backfire. Billy thinks giving Holden a choice makes him stronger. It could actually expose his weakness. By demanding loyalty, Billy reveals how worried he is about opposition. A confident leader doesn't always need to force people to choose. Billy's insistence may tell Holden that the Chancellor situation isn't as secure as Billy claims. If Billy truly had everything under control, why would he need Holden so badly? That question could remain in Holden's mind. And Holden may not answer immediately. Sometimes silence is more powerful than a yes or no. The bigger question, who owns Chancellor? The central question remains unresolved. Billy believes the company belongs to the Abbotts. Kane and Lily aren't prepared to surrender. Jack wants John Abbott's legacy protected. Victoria has her own interests. And other Genoa City power players could eventually become involved. The battle is therefore moving beyond simple ownership. It has become a battle over identity. What does Chancellor represent? For Billy, it represents family. For Kane and Lily, it represents their future. For Jack, it represents his father's legacy. For Victoria, it represents another potential threat to her family. And for everyone watching, it represents one of the biggest corporate wars Genoa City has seen in a long time. Final predictions. Tuesday's episode could mark the beginning of a major escalation. Jack's warning to Kane may initially appear straightforward, but it could become much more important if Kane or Lily eventually invokes John Abbott's name again. Billy's confrontation with Holden could create a new alliance, or a new enemy. Holden has been offered an opportunity, but accepting Billy's offer could come with a serious price. Claire seeing Victoria and Kyle together may be the first step toward a much bigger emotional storyline. Even if they are only friends right now, Claire's reaction proves that their growing closeness is becoming noticeable. And Danny's investment in the Shadow Room gives Genoa City another major location where future alliances, confrontations and secrets can unfold. The most interesting part of the August 18th storyline is that none of these plots exists in isolation. Jack's warning affects Kane. Kane's battle affects Lily. Billy's ambition affects Holden. Holden's decision affects Claire. Claire's reaction could affect Victoria. Victoria's connection with Kyle could affect both the Newman and Abbott families. And somewhere in the middle of it all, Chancellor Industries remains the prize everyone wants. Billy may believe the company is already his. But in Genoa City, nothing is ever truly settled until the final move is made. Jack has drawn his line. Kane is looking for allies. Billy is demanding loyalty. Claire is watching. And Kyle and Victoria may be creating a connection that could shake both families. The Chancellor War has entered a dangerous new phase, and the next move could determine who stands with Billy, who stands with Kane, and who gets caught in the crossfire.